Fire! Before you dive into this gripping story, make sure to subscribe for more powerful tales of courage, revenge, and redemption, because the next story might just change how you see strength forever. Now, let's begin. Once upon a time in the quiet outskirts of a sun-baked farming town, where fields stretched endlessly and neighbors knew each other's secrets far too well, there lived a girl named Clara May, known by everyone as the Fat Farm Girl, because cruel tongues found it easier to mock her size than to recognize her grit, her sharp mind, or the extraordinary training that secretly set her apart. For what they didn't know was that her late uncle, a decorated Green Beret sniper with scars etched deep in both flesh and memory, had raised her not only among cornfields and barns but also in the discipline of survival, sharpshooting, stealth, and resilience, teaching her that the land itself could be weapon and shield if you learned to listen to it. Yet the bullies from town, spoiled sons of wealthy ranchers and arrogant drifters, couldn't see past the overalls, the mud on her boots, or the curves that made her an easy target for their jeers, and so the cruelty grew from whispers into taunts, from taunts into harassment, and eventually into trespass, when they began riding their trucks across her fields, breaking fences, terrifying her animals, all while laughing and calling her names meant to crush her spirit, never realizing that every insult was forging in Clara a colder, sharper determination, that every violation of her land was another reason she would one day make them regret underestimating her. At first, Clara ignored them, working the soil with sweat-soaked resolve, remembering her uncle's words, "Discipline is silence until it must be thunder." But then came the day when the group, led by Travis Harlan, the arrogant son of the richest rancher, decided to escalate their cruelty by storming her property with paintball guns, pelting her house, her barn, even her livestock, leaving bruised chickens and terrified horses in their wake. And something inside Clara snapped, because this wasn't just bullying anymore, it was war against her home, her sanctuary, the very inheritance her uncle had fought to protect. So she dusted off the old rifle case hidden under the floorboards, the one he had gifted her before passing, whispering that one day she might need it more than he ever did. And when she held the cold metal of the long-range sniper rifle, memories flooded back of nights spent in the forest, her uncle teaching her to slow her breathing, to blend with shadows, to watch without being seen, until the target revealed its weakness. She didn't want to kill them. No, Clara wasn't bloodthirsty, but she wanted to teach them a lesson they'd never forget, a lesson that humiliation cuts both ways. The next night, when Travis and his crew returned, armed with beer bottles and fireworks, planning to party on her land like it was theirs, Clara lay hidden in the tall grass, scope fixed, not on bodies, but on objects around them: glass bottles, hubcaps, cans of cheap beer balanced on truck roofs. And with terrifying precision, she began firing, each shot cracking through the night, shattering bottles an inch from their hands, punching holes through cans as they lifted them to their mouths, striking tires so trucks sank into the soil, until panic swept the bullies like wildfire, their laughter replaced with screams, their bravado stripped raw, and all they saw in the dark was the silhouette of a fat farm girl, stepping from the shadows, holding a weapon she wielded like an extension of her soul, her voice steady as she told them to get off her land or the next shot might not be aimed at metal or glass but at the false courage they carried in their chests. They scattered that night, fear etched into their eyes, but Travis, humiliated in front of his gang, swore vengeance, and vengeance is a dangerous seed in the heart of a coward. So he plotted, whispering lies in town about Clara, painting her as dangerous, unstable, claiming she had pulled a gun on unarmed boys, and soon enough the whispers grew, and law enforcement came knocking, questioning her, though no evidence stood against her except the testimony of those who had trespassed. Clara stood firm, her gaze unyielding, but inside she felt the town's judgment like barbed wire tightening around her spirit, until she realized that bullies don't stop until they are broken, and Travis wasn't broken yet. A week later, on a stormy night when lightning split the sky, Travis and his gang returned once more, this time armed with more than paintballs. They carried bats, chains, and a hunger to finally crush Clara beneath their boots. But Clara had prepared, laying traps across her land like a patient spider, trenches filled with water, lines of barbed wire hidden under hay, and as they charged into her territory, laughing, the earth itself seemed to turn against them, trucks bogging down in mud, tires shredded, men tripping into pits, until panic again rose, and one by one they were cornered not by her rifle this time, but by her presence, for Clara had stepped out with night vision goggles, moving unseen until she chose to appear, her voice cutting the storm. "You don't belong here. And you never will again." What followed was chaos and revelation, as she disarmed one thug after another, using skills drilled into her by a Green Beret who had once taught her that strength isn't in muscles but in the will to stand when no one else will, until Travis himself was left crawling in the mud, his arrogance drowned in the storm, and Clara, instead of striking him down, forced him to walk out humiliated before his own followers. Word spread fast, and though the town remained divided, some fearing her, others quietly admiring her, the legend of the fat farm girl who turned her tormentors into cowards took root, a story whispered in diners and feed stores, a warning not to mistake kindness or silence for weakness. Yet the final twist came months later, when Travis, still burning with shame, tried one last desperate attack, setting fire to the edge of her crops in the dead of night, thinking the blaze would finish what he could not, but Clara, awake and ready, caught him in the act, dragging him by the collar before the sheriff with undeniable proof, and as the flames died and dawn broke, it was not Clara who stood accused, but Travis, his reputation scorched beyond repair, his family forced to pay restitution, his friends abandoning him like rats fleeing a sinking ship, and Clara, though scarred by all she had endured, stood taller than ever, not because she was thin or beautiful in the shallow way the town once judged, but because she had proven that strength is not measured in appearance but in resilience, in courage, in the refusal to bow to cruelty. From that day on, Clara worked her land in peace, the whispers fading, the respect growing, and deep inside she carried the lesson her uncle had given her, that a sniper's true weapon is patience, and victory belongs not to the loudest, but to the one who waits, the one who stands, the one who endures, and Clara May, the so-called fat farm girl, endured, triumphed, and became the storm that bullies would never dare to provoke again.